Now, this is a story about Karen's, actually our, cancer journey. And it's a rather long one, so I am going to split it up. But I think it's a really good story. It's very interesting. And hopefully it can help some people that are struggling or looking for alternatives to fighting cancer rather than chemotherapy that we offer here in North America. So anyways, enjoy this story and hopefully it'll help you. Thank you.
Hello, folks. Welcome to another episode. Hanging with Huxley. Number 13, actually. 14. Woo-hoo! Time's flying by. Anyways, this is maybe a rather long story, but I think you'll see that it's well worth it. So I'm going to flash back to about 2009. Karen and I went down to Cabo San Lucas for a couple of weeks, stayed at a friend's place up in Pedregal. And towards the end of the trip, we were all nicely tanned, had a great time. And we went up to Todos Santos, which is where the Hotel California is. That's not the hotel the Eagles wrote about, although they claim it is, but nobody really knows. Anyways, on the way up, the sun was kind of setting, and it was absolutely beautiful. We went down to this beach where we were the only two there, and Karen had her beautiful bikini on, and I'm going to insert some pictures here. I know you're sick of seeing Karen in a bikini, but I could never get enough of that. Anyways, probably the best photo shoot I ever did with Karen. She was 59, I believe, at the time. And I had her running along the beach and doing this and doing that. And the photos came out beautiful. I shot them with my heavy-duty Nikon camera. And anyways, I went up to Toto, had a nice dinner and came back. And came home about, 2 or 3 days later. And immediately she got quite ill. She was diarrhea and vomiting and everything. We thought, well, it's just Montezuma's revenge kind of thing, right? So... So anyways, we went to the doctor, did some tests and everything, and it turns out that she had 5 pounds of non-Hodgkin's lymphoma in her stomach. Wow, that hit us like a ton of bricks. First doctor told us that she had ovarian cancer, and to get her affairs in order, I could punch that doctor right in the face. All the tests weren't in yet, which, unbelievable. Anyways, and then, so they suggested she go for chemo, so she did 6-8 weeks of chemotherapy every day, come home at night, she's puking, and it was horrible, and her hair started to fall out in clumps, and as you can see by those photos, she had amazing hair. Actually did a lot of hair modeling back in her early 20s for the famous Robin Barker in Yorkville. And anyways, her hair was falling out in clumps and whatnot, but she'd still come into the kitchen where I was cooking and still so proud, held her head up and looked me right in the eye. And I said, oh, Karen, I says, man, are you doing okay? She goes, it's so hard, Bob, it's so hard. Anyways, at the end of 6 weeks of treatment or 8 weeks, whatever it was, they said, sorry, there's nothing, this tumor's not shrinking, you should get your affairs in order. Well, wow. Anyways, she was doing okay for a few months. We ended up going down to Palm Springs. Rented a nice private home down there with a swimming pool and whatnot. I took my mother down, who was, I don't know, maybe 75 at the time, 80, probably 80. And they were having a nice time, and I set up an appointment with La Quinta, and they have 6 golf courses. As you know, I photograph golf courses and professional golf. And I was very excited about that. That is a big job to land. So I went down to La Quinta, which is about 45 minutes south of Palm Springs, where we were staying. It's made up of like 5 or 6 towns. And if you've been to Palm Springs, you know the routine. So we went down there, or I went down there and left Mom and Karen at home. I said, I'll be back for dinner. Left about 3 o'clock. I think my appointment was at 3:30, 4, something like that. So I went down there, got in the gate, which, you know, it's a very gated community. You don't just walk into La Quinta. So they had my name there and everything. So I went in and met with the head pro and the head marketing guy. And the meeting went really well. They loved my product. I was also going to offer them a hole-in-one for all 6 courses. That's 24 holes. I'd shoot the holes, and I made a beautiful plaque with the scorecard and blah, blah, blah. And they really liked that. Plus, I was going to shoot the courses. So the meeting went really well, and I came out of there and I thought, well, I'm inside the gates of La Quinta now. I'm going to have a little drive around and see all these beautiful mansions. And I'm driving along, and this guy's cycling towards me. And as he went by me, I kind of looked, and I thought, gee, that looks like Barry Johnson, who owns the Boston Pizza up in Whistler, who I knew quite well, been to many parties at his house and whatnot. And he's married to Carol Lowe, whose brother is Kevin Lowe from the Edmonton Oilers, played with Gretzky and Messier and all them. Then he became the general manager and blah, blah, blah from there. I kept driving. And then after about 100 yards, I thought, God, I got to turn around. That sure looks like Barry Johnson. Anyway, so I turned around and came up beside him. He's cycling along, and I bzzz the window. I put the window down on the right side, the passenger side. I looked through it. He goes, Bob, what are you doing? I go, Barry, that is you, Barry Johnson. He goes, yeah. He said, Carol and I are down renting a place down here. He said, why don't you come back for a glass of wine? Carol would love to see you. I said, well, that would be great. I'd love to do that. And so anyways, he said, follow me. So we turned around and we went 200 yards to where they are renting this beautiful home. And I went inside, parked the car on the street actually, went inside, and we went out to the back patio, which was right on, I think it was the Norman or the Palmer course. Then we sat down, had a nice glass of wine. Carol wasn't getting busy. They were having company for dinner. Anyways, to speed this up a little bit, Carol came out after a while and said, Bob, sorry, but you're going to have to leave. I know them pretty well, so she could be quite frank with me. She said, you're going to have to leave because we got company coming over and blah, blah, blah. My brother's coming and blah, blah, blah. So I said, okay, gave them both a hug. And as I went outside, it's just getting dusk. And they had an SUV parked in the driveway. All of a sudden, I saw this blonde-haired girl duck down on the passenger side like she was doing something nefarious, right? So I'm thinking, oh, what's going on here? And I walked around the front of the car, and there she was crouched. She kind of popped up and said, who are you? I said, well, what do you mean? First off, who are you? Are you breaking into the car? She goes, well, who do you know in there? I said, well, I'm a good friend of Barry and Carol's from Whistler. Now she's up facing me, a couple of feet in front of me. And she says, oh, I'm here for dinner. I'm Kevin Lowe's wife. And I know the sporting history and whatnot. So I said, that would make you Karen Percy, Olympic gold figure skater medalist. He goes, downhill.
In her own backyard.
Yeah, damn, I knew that.
But her achievement that day was even sweeter because she had just won Canada's first medal at the Winter Olympics in Calgary, where she beat Maria Ballister, one of the top skiers in the world.
Ballister goes down, she has you go down after Ballister.
So anyway, so I said, wow, I said, I remember the Calgary 88 Olympics. I said, give me a hug. I said, you did Canada so proud. Anyways, I gave her a nice hug and we said goodbye to each other and off she went in the house for dinner. And then I went outside the gates and I thought, it's getting late. It's like now 6:30 or whatever. So I phoned my wife, Karen, and my mom, and I said, listen, why don't you guys have dinner? Because it's still a 45-hour drive back to Palm Springs. I said, I'm going to just grab a bite to eat here and, blah, blah, blah. So I'll see you around 8:30 when I get home. Fine, everything's great. So I go into Old Town La Quinta, park the car, and I go inside the first pub I came to, and I got up to the bar, and the guy says, what would you like to drink? And I said, no offense, but I said, what is the fare here before I order a drink? He goes, we're just chicken fingers and hamburgers and fries and that kind of thing. I said, don't take any offense, but I said, I feel like a real upscale meal. Oh, he says, no offense taken. He goes, you want to go across the street to the Desert Sage? He says, that's a nice upscale restaurant. I said, okay, thank you very much. So I went across the street to Desert Sage. Beautiful place. I walked in and oh, okay, I think I like this place. Got up to the bar. Bartender comes over. What do you have? I said, well, what's the special on today? He goes, sea bass. I go, perfect. Sign me up for the sea bass. And I'll have, I forget what I had. I think a margarita. So I'm sitting there kind of just looking at my phone or whatever. In comes this rather good-looking couple. And they sit beside me. There's a couple empty stools beside me. Then there's another couple past them and some other people. And all of a sudden they started talking to the other people. And the guy who was beside me started talking, telling his story about his cancer journey. How he'd been down and he's had the big, like the size of a grapefruit fruit on the side of his neck, like a big goiter. And he went to all the Mayo clinics and they said, sorry, there's nothing we can do for you. You'll be dead in 2 months, I think it was. And he ended up going to this health show in San Diego. His son was urging him to go. And one of the speakers, when they went for their tea break, came over to Rob Pyle was his name. I'll never forget it. And said to Rob, I think I can help you with that, and blah, blah, blah. The rest is history. And I hear him recounting this story to the other couple. And he says, now I go all around the United States of America. I give lectures, I'm on radio, and I'm on TV. And he said, I am now 6 years cancer-free when the Mayo Clinic told me I'd be dead in like a month or two. So unbelievable. So anyways, he kind of finishes the story to them, and I'm like listening intently. So I give him a little elbow and I say, hey, I said, I couldn't help but overhear your story. My name's Bob Huxtable, and he introduced himself and his wife, or his girlfriend, Susie Hammerland, who became good friends of ours down the road. Anyways, I said, wow, that's an amazing story. And I said, my wife's going through the same stuff. I said, she's been told she's got a couple of months to live. She did chemo. They can't help her. He said, listen, he says, I will have my doctor from Tijuana. He went down to Tijuana, right? And he said, I'll have him call you. And I said, why would you go to Tijuana? And he says, well, he uses